Hey guys, Jordan here with 5-minute messages, and today we're going to look at part 2 of the bread of life, looking in John chapter 6. Remember a couple weeks ago we talked about Jesus using this phrase, I am the bread of life. So we're going to continue that. We're going to start in verse 35 tonight. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who looks on the Son and believes in him should have eternal life. And I will raise him up on the last day. So the Jews grumbled about him, because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, Is not this Jesus the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How does he now say, I have come down from heaven? Jesus answered them, Do not grumble among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. And I will raise him up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will all be taught by God. Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from God. He has seen the Father. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that comes down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. So, if you remember a couple weeks ago, I talked about that my grandma was a lunch lady, and she baked fresh breads for our lunches. No matter how good grandma's rolls, homemade rolls were, homemade breads, or bierox were, I would get hungry again. And the difference between the physical bread like that, or anything physical for that matter, and the bread of life that Jesus and everything that he brings is eternal. In verses 37 through 39, he tells us that all that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. So Jesus saves, but God is the one who said, this is who's going to be saved, and Jesus saves them. But we can see here, not only does God say, I'm going to save you, Jesus performed the saving work on the cross, right? But we see here that they will never be cast out, that they have eternal security, that there is no question that those that are saved by God through Christ will be secure eternally. And we also see in verse 35, he says, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. Okay, there's a pattern here that this isn't physical, that what Jesus is talking about goes beyond physical. So what Jesus brings that keeps us from hungering is true joy, true hope, true peace that causes that hungering and thirsting to cease. And that can only come from the bread of life, Jesus Christ. Because what we really hunger and thirst for isn't physical, but it's spiritual. It's this longing to know him and to know God. Okay, and then we see, it continues on into verses 41 through 51, where the Jews are grumbling about him, and they're talking about the manna. They're thinking about the manna, and manna was held in such high regard for the Hebrew people, and rightfully so, because of what the memories that it carried and God's provision during the Exodus. But Jesus just knocks all that down in verse 49, where he says, your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. Okay, so that he takes this thing that they've elevated, and he slaps it down, and he says, they died. They ate that, and they died. I'm the bread of life. And we all do this. We all elevate things to a place where they don't belong. Even spiritual things, even things that are good. Things like places, whether it's a camp, a conference, a church, a person, maybe a pastor, a speaker, singers, family members, it could be anybody. What things, maybe books or translations, songs, that hold significant meaning to us. These things may be good, but they're attached to fond memories and meaningful experiences, but they're not ultimate. They're not the greatest thing. The Father saves us through the Son, not only so that we can have eternal life, but so we can have eternal perspective, so that we can have his perspective, so we can live for his glory. Because those that God has drawn to Christ and saved by grace have no end, and should live in a way that reflects that acknowledges that. Living with an eternal perspective changes things. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you see people. It changes your choices. It changes your priorities. It changes everything about you when you live in a way, knowing that you're eternal and that other people around you are eternal. The way you see people is different because you see the bread, Jesus himself, right? Jesus, the bread of life, as he's saying these words, knows exactly what's coming. He knows what he's going to. In fact, he says, "For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me." And as he's making this statement, he knows exactly what God's will is. He knows exactly what the Father has for him. And we see that in 51 in the second half of the verse. "And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh." He knew that he was headed to the cross, that he was going to endure this terrible death, probably one of the top 3 worst, if not the worst form of capital punishment, of the death sentence that anybody has ever created, right? And he knows that he's going to endure that, feel the weight of every sin ever, pay the price so that we can be saved. He knows that's coming. And we also know that he rose from the dead and he lives victoriously forever, so that we can live victoriously forever because we're eternal also. Thanks, guys.